Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Today we are back again with another PWCC weekly review where we go through the top 100 soccer card items auctioned off this week. As always, if you enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, would appreciate it greatly, helps the channel. And yeah, with that said, let's go ahead and get right on into it. Starting from the bottom, working our way up, we do have a fun Mazzola to start us off. Always love the design on the 30s and 40s Italian issues, very, very unique. We have been seeing these rounded corner PSA slabs recently. They do present pretty well, I would say. I'm not sure in terms of how they look and feel and if they've gotten rid of the Newton's rings. That's the word I was thinking of. But yeah, the Newton's rings are definitely just tough to look at times. They can be very distracting and also can be bad in terms of if you're someone trying to buy it, knowing if there's actually a defect or not. We'll skip through some stuff I don't care to talk about too much, like, maybe a Topps Crystal Erling Haaland and Declan Rice. Moving on up, we'll talk about a different Haaland. This one, notable in the sense it's his primary sticker that you think of. Also, we've been seeing this lately going down a good bit, 50% down in, last year? So yeah, has been dropping. These were 250 pretty consistently. Now down to, that's a pretty low drop there from the 150s to the 110s. We have a Nobility Pele PSA 10 going for 130. I did look up sales on that, and one thing I would say with cards like this, basically parallels in general, I think people are really not paying for the PSA 10 premium. I think, they're almost just as happy to get it raw. A lot of these raw sales were doing like 80, 90, and then in a PSA 10 does 130. Maybe that's a spot where you could buy that, then, ask the premium and try to flip it, but that's just something I've noticed. 99 out of 99, which is always kind of cool to me. PSA 10 Messi sticker going there for 130. In this row, we have a Crying Pele and a BVG 1.5. I thought this was a pretty high sale. There's another one here in a second, but $140 for an authentic altered Messi rookie. We've seen like 4s and 5s go near that range at times. And this Miazza just, kind of nightmare fuely. If you've ever heard of Meat Canyon, that's immediately what I thought of when I saw this, and it made me chuckle, but yeah, definitely unique, I would say. Above that, keeping it in the area, we have a Inzaghi PSA 9 there going for 138. We have a gold Marco Verratti from the treble set for 144. Feels like a pretty strong price for Verratti, if I'm being honest, but I'm sure 8s aren't all that easy in the treble set. I'm not too familiar, but I know I don't see many 10s, and 8s and 9s is probably what you're expecting or hoping for. 78 Sanchez PSA 7 goes for 144. Do have some pass sales pulled up here. Relatively in line. There's been a PSA 6 in the past, just a few months ago, that went for 56. This PSA 7 goes for 144, so relatively feels like a pretty good deal. Maybe some have kind of snuck through, but this one goes for a decent price. Fun to see the comparison between the 1/1 Andy Cole and the Pele we just saw prior. So for every 99 Pele people, there's one Andy Cole, and I would have thought the ratio would be even higher, but I had to do a little research here because I was not familiar, but basically this is the top Iranian striker of all time. It has like double the goals of anyone else that's ever played for him. So obviously, very important player in that regard. Next to him, you have Frank Lampard, more of a household name, I would imagine, and they go for the same price, which is pretty interesting. These aren't all that plentiful. Obviously, it's Merlin, so, they're still out there. But Panini Foosball still out there as well, and I found it interesting that these go for the same price. It really shows you the depth of collector we have at this point, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever actually going to go through the effort, but I would like to go through and basically see in these PWCC auctions, like, how many people sell, because for soccer, it feels like there's so many, man. There's just so many people, so many different types of cards. With other sports, it feels like it would get so boring, but this is just as plentiful as ever. Row above it, we have a 2020 Finest Topps Gold Erling Haaland, SGC 10. We have an authentic altered Messi. Again, feels like a decent price for an authentic altered to me. Maybe it looked good, I'm not too sure, but you can still see the corners are whitened down there. And then we have a Euro Zidane going for 156. In this row, can't really speak too much to the Vieri. I would say comes to mind a little less than some of the other Italian players of the time, so not something you see all too often. Pop 1 of 10, just 1 higher. The Ginola, pop 1 of 3, none higher. And then this Marcelo Gold treble and a PSA 8 goes for 162. I looked that up just because I was interested. We look up trebles every now and then, like I like to do with all sets. This goes for 162. Last Raw did 80. One before that, 130, and then 300. So sort of shows, I guess, the timeline of at least this card in particular, where there was a little bit of a lull post, sort of hype, and then now there seems to be, maybe a little bit of a bump. Could be that. Could be the grading premium if 8s deserve that. It does say just pop 1 of 1, 3 higher, but 3 higher isn't anything to scoff at. We have a Clivert Kluivert from 1995 and a PSA 9 going for 174. A PSA 1 Maradona that I did place a bid on, but this was just more one of those bids that you throw in, and if it lands low enough, you'll take it. 174, about what you'd expect. Next we have another Mazzola here in a PSA 2 going for 174, pop one of 1-2 higher. This is pretty impressive. I mean, I've always, sort of had the Okocha rookies in mind. From what I understand, it's to be a rookie. Maybe there's something more rare that I'm unaware of, but this is a PSA 8 goes for 180, just pop one of 6, 1 higher. PSA 4 of the Beckenbauer, we see these a fair bit, I would say, and, even in med grades, so that goes for 180. A couple KDB autos, a Blue Wave Jao Felix PSA 10. Always love this 1967 crack Figuritas Pele SGC one. We will see a Yashin here in a bit, which is a nice one as well. Casemiro PSA 9 from 2022 Gold Prism goes for nearly 200. Thierry Henry Team Rookie PSA 9 for nearly 200. Also a Larson. Always love seeing this stuff. There's another Larson, right above it, so right there. Also 200. Again, strong prices for what is a secondary star. Not to disparage, obviously in soccer there's, tons of different stars and so many different ways you can go, so I respect each one. 1970 Eusebio here, the Bisfalita back from the Mexico World Cup. Sort of an homage to 1966. As you can see, pop 1 of 7, just 2 higher for the PSA 5, goes for 200. Xavi at 200. This is basically, in my mind, what I expect the Iniestas and Xavis to do at this point. Sometimes plus or minus a little bit, but it seems in PSA 9 they do go for a good bit. This one is noticeably off-center on the front, so that probably hinders it a little bit, I would say. But still, I thought this was really low. I mean, it is authentic altered, but when we talk about authentic altered, we saw the Messi ones go earlier for like 140, 150, and, this is a lot harder to get. Obviously, it's Cruyff, not Messi, but, I think that if you're a true soccer fan, you'd want both to some extent. This is sort of the coveted Cruyff rookie, at least as of now, and, those other Messis are never really going to be that for him. I don't think there's a world where people really go in on the Campio or the Campiones and start loving those. So looking at authentic altereds, this goes for 216. Last one was 630, 1300, 800, 800, 2000. Obviously, also to be noted, the other ones definitely have a border and look much more presentable. This one has no border. How you feel about that, to each their own. I think that, to me, I'd always rather have something that seemed genuinely altered, not in a malicious way in an attempt to make more money off of a sale of an item. So something like this, I don't think anyone was ever doing this with the intent of bettering the monetary value they'll get out of it. Maybe that's the case. Nonetheless, $200 for that isn't anything crazy, and seems pretty good in my opinion. We have a 60s Eusebio here. Don't really see this all too often. Very stark colors and one to throw in the memory bank. We also have a 1930s Piola as well in a CGC2. Then in this row we have a combination of pre-modern classics, a BGS 7 Messi here going for 240. Again, I just keep hitting back to those authentic altereds, but man, a BGS 7 for less than double. 2002 BGS 9.5 of Drogba going for 252. Don't see many BGS 9.5s, and probably good that we don't see many. I wouldn't recommend people to grade stickers with BGS at this point. Kind of looks wavy just from what I'm seeing right here. That's also a problem with their slabs, and I would imagine that's the case there. PSA 9 Beckham goes for 250. We have the Raul and Bertragueno going again. I'm imagining this is a rerun from last week. Maybe it's not. I also don't know how you'd rerun something immediately the next week, so that's always sort of interesting to me. Both times it felt like a really high price. I mean, I know this is Raul rookie and it's low pop, but you can find these. Nonetheless, we'll see if we see that again. 2021 Heung-Min Son. This is a PSA 3 Vanderhoot of Cruyff, and looked pretty sharp to me. Feels like it was unstuck, but that's always something you're gonna have to look for yourself. 2022 Immaculate Verratti. BGS 7.5 here for Messi Campio, the green version, going with a Merlin's Gold David Beckham in a 9, going for 276 each of those. Couple odd and ends from each goat. We have a 1969 Pele, really nice photo there. Very photogenic, along with a BGS 9 Cristiano Ronaldo. It still feels like, a pretty solid price, I know these have come back a long way, but still, a gem mint first World Cup Ronaldo for 300 feels pretty fair. It doesn't feel particularly light, like I'm going to have to go out and buy all of them, but it doesn't feel wildly expensive to the point where, why would you want to go after that? So good to see that. That's also a min gem there with the 9 on the edges. We have a 1962 Pele Verlag with the second World Cup trophy there. There's an Andrea Pirlo for 360 in a PSA 9, pop 105, none higher. And then this pretty cool looking 1967 Figuritas Sport Levia Shin in a PSA 3. Pretty nice eye appeal, I would say, for a 3. I mean, nothing all too stark, at least on the front. And obviously a very fun picture that is a pretty, big card in vintage. I think a lot of people sort of covet this card, and this set in particular. There's a lot of fun depictions, but solid price there. Also went back and looked just to see what other ones go for, and raw you had 220, 510, 280, 400, so it seemed within the range of what you'd expect. In this row, we'll skip by it. It's just some sticker autos with a matchbook. There's an authentic altered Pele Aquarella for 384 again. A bunch would prefer the Cruyff, but I'll just allude to that endlessly, I guess. 2017 Casemiro, 10 of 10 gold select field level. Love the field levels, of course. A lot of people very much fans of them. Particularly 2017 people seem to like because, first year horizontal, and it looks very, very good, I would say. Just eye appeal wise, off the charts. Also has Mbappe's rookie in there, so that's going to be meaningful. And looks just astounding. Goes for 400, not all too crazy, especially, assuming a lot of Real Madrid collectors are out there hunting. 1997 Ronaldo goes for 400 in a PSA 10 from the Calciatore set. We have a Kaboom, a Pele, and then, most importantly, a Raja Mila. PSA 8 rookie, pop 1 of 5 goes there. Also, a 1 of 1 in Pele auto is pretty cheap at 400, I will say. Obviously, it's Leaf, but that kind of struck me when I went through this. 1985 Baggio, PSA 8 goes for 444, next to a Heinerle Pele from 1961. Really clean look there with the white borders, white shirt, Santos badge, and the chain as well. Just vintage Pele. Our 9 sticker above that, we also have another Pele that we see I feel like quite a bit, but a nice cardboard Pele there. A Platini PSA 5 goes for 516. Looked this up because I was interested, but then I did close it. So last one sold for like a little under 400, but it was also more OC, so the give and the take of that. This Cristiano Ronaldo with his name spelled improperly goes for 528. Last year was 581, 690, 728, and then 456, 550, 600. So again, within the range, pretty decent prices for a third year Ronaldo. It might be second year. I'm not all too certain. I'll trust PSA and say third year. But yeah, Topps Premier Gold obviously has some heritage throughout the year, so I think that helps it a lot. 1965 TTT Franz Beckenbauer. This is the in-action shot, and this one goes for, I believe, 600? Yeah, for PSA 5. Last PSA 6 did 870, so comparatively, that seems like a pretty strong sale. There have been higher in the past, of course. We have a couple fun modern pieces here. 1 of 1 Florian Wirtz. We have an Iniesta 2017 Topps Chrome Orange out of 25 auto going for 630 and a 1 of 1 SEC 10. And then we also have the 2018 Optic Red Velocity Kylian Mbappe. Really, really cool card. I love the Red Velocity, Black Velocity. I think they look really good. Obviously a bit biased since there's 2018 US rookies in there, so it's a set I'm very fond of. But yeah, French kit. that's a very cool Mbappe, if I do say so myself. Same for the Iniesta, and same for the Wirtz, of course. Above that, a pretty rare Pele, at least from what I see. I don't really see this all too often. It's not really in my memory bank. 1961 of a Garamar Pele there. We then match it up with a more plentiful, but also very important Garincha from the 1955 Vecchi. I did throw in some bids on this one. I was in, not at the very end because it kind of ran, but I was in a bit lower. I was just hoping to sort of mark my spot there, make my claim. Last PSA 1 did 209, so I was really hoping, like maybe $400 for 2, something like that. There's a real big distinction between, a 2 and a 1 or an authentic, because basically all of these are stuck, I think, like 70-80% of the population stuck, so a 2 is pretty good. 780 also a pretty hefty premium, when the last PSA 1 did 209. So before that, though, these have been much higher. There was a PSA 1 for 600, 1,000, yada yada. Go back further, be a little higher. I always like vintage because it has a lot more of a history in soccer, and you can look back in the day and sort of see stuff that had been selling. This was a PWCC authentic, pretty beaten up one that sold in 2018 for nearly $200. So relatively, feels like a decent time if you want to buy one nowadays. You can get them for nearly the old prices, and that doesn't seem to be too bad of an option to me. They're not something that's been, growing in pop all too much. Keep in mind, of course, I don't have any. I wanted this one, but sad to see it go. Pretty good eye appeal for 2. I mean, a little OC, but, what are you going to do? You could also read the back, so I thought it was nice. Above that, BGS 10 Lewandowski Orange goes for nearly 1,000, along with a Ronaldo and a Messi. In this row, I mean, to me, I still think sticker autos are a little overhyped. I'd much rather have either of the other two than the sticker auto, but that might just be me. I mean, the 2017 tie-dye field level does look really good, so I'd personally rather have this. It is a PSA 9, though, compared to a BGS 10, but at the same time, I'm not too fond of Lewandowski, but obviously certain people are, and, that's why they all go within the same range. Above that, 9.5 Mbappe goes for a little over 1,000. We have a PSA 4 Lionel Messi Mega Crack, so that went for a pretty low price. I looked up the history of PSA 4s in particular, and, yeah, I mean, basically, down a lot recently, but this sale right here is sort of maybe peak mania, and might even be just a little high for one reason or another. So if you sort of take the average of what was going on back here, this is a little low compared to the average, right? But, all in all, I think this sort of encompasses why Messi coming to the MLS and, not really doing anything doesn't really matter. It was nice in the moment, and it's nice to think about what it could mean going forward. But as of right now, I mean, this is basically, when he got to the MLS, when that's all happening, peaks out in August and people get excited, peaks out in August and people get excited, and then, now season's over, no one really cares, and off you go. Next to that, we have a 9.5 of the green version from the team set, and this is an example where, I felt like this got a pretty strong price for the grade, right? A lot of people have been equating BGS 9.5s to PSA 9s almost at this point in the market. People have basically said at times with their wallet that BGS 9.5s are equivalent to PSA 9s. I don't personally agree, but I do in this scenario because we can basically see that it's a min gem, or actually a mixed gem. It has a 10 surface, 9 edges, and so there's a little something wrong with it, but most importantly, especially back in the day, BGS, I mean, when there's no borders, they don't really grade centering. The way that this badge up here, this Barca Campeón, is supposed to be, it's supposed to be equally, a distant from the top and the side of the card. And you can tell it's much more off to the right than it is top to bottom. And that should be like a, probably an 8 centering or something along those lines. And instead it says a 9.5, and that's just crazy to me. But, that's the way they graded some of these things. And nonetheless, it gets 1,300 because people buy slabs, not cards at times. And that's what we see there. We have a PSA 2 Pele Bremer Fakring going up with the goalie here in the 1958 World Cup, goes for 1,700 in a PSA 2 with the eye appeal designation. This was a pretty high price. We've seen a PSA 10 go recently for 3.5, nearly 4K, so almost 2 for a PSA 9 is a pretty decent price. I would say on modern parallels, people just don't pay the premium for the grades, it doesn't seem, which to me is good. I think people are caring more about the cards rather than the grades, and we're starting to see that a little bit everywhere. There will be a shocking one here in a second. A Red Refractor 2018 Finest Messi goes for 2K, and this was the one I was referencing. So this goes for 2,000. To be fair, the most plentiful PSA 10 Messi rookie there is, but these at one point in time, I don't know the peak, but I'm sure they were probably 20,000, maybe 30, maybe higher. I don't know about higher, but I know some of them were, right? And to be down all the way at 2, I think it speaks, well, one, very highly of the PSA 10 drop. Obviously, the whole card, situation has dropped as well, just as well as it pumped before, but, all that played itself out. The 10s have really taken a beating, and again, I mean, look at this centering. I guess I roasted BGS for not looking at this, but the PSA centering on this is terrible, too. I think if you regraded this, there's no way it's a 10. So I guess relative to that, it's a pretty good price, but, relative to the grade, it's not at all, and, that's something to consider, of course. Next to that, a couple on-card Ronaldos. We have a 2018 NT Colossal and a 2016 Noir Club Signatures, both some very cool-looking cards. Always love the Noir. They just stick out to me aesthetically. I think they are solid. Also an 8.5 grade on that, which is nice. Speaking of nice grades, we have some in this row. We have a 9.5 Mundi Chromo Messi. Here, this is a minimum gem. There's a 9 on the surface, so, goes for over the PSA 10 price of this Campeón, which is something you don't see all too often, so I think that's something of note. Maybe the Mundi Chromo staking its claim a little bit more. 1979 Maradona Calciatore. I don't know if, I think I saw this in a Discord of someone saying either this was trimmed or it's fake or whatever it is. It's a more recently graded, is it? Yeah, I think it's more recently graded. I think it's 13. It could be 10 million. Either way, BGS 9 Maradonas would scare me. Okay, that's not that recently graded. So still very scary, but nonetheless gets a decent price there at $3,200. We have a PSA 4 Pele Aquarella that went for $4,200 right there with a PWCC eye appeal sticker, top 15%. I said in a recent video of, sort of first cards that come to mind, but when the 50s come to mind, this is one of the first ones I think of, and I think it's just because at this point we basically see it in every auction, if not every other auction. There's just so many of them that, it sort of sticks in the mind. Blackback here does a pretty good number. They have been falling a bit, but higher grade for that one. Then for the top three, starting off, we have a blue PSA 10 Kylian Mbappe from the 2017 Topps Chrome set. Goes for a little over 5K, which is matching up with what we saw recently at 5.2, 5.1. If we go a little further back, it's into the 6s, but nothing all too crazy. I think a reasonable drop-off in price, considering both it's a very high-priced card for where soccer's at, and also Kylian Mbappe isn't really doing anything this year to warrant a run in any way. So I think it's reasonable. Pretty impressed with how it's sort of stuck there. We'll see if that one goes. Then we have a 2016 Noir out of 60 Messi signature from the Legendary Signature set. This one goes for 55, while the prior did 58, and before that we have 4.7, 68. Now something also to notice here, and you got to do these all the time in your own searches just to be able to see what has sold, what hasn't, make sure you're not using improper comps. The top two are the same ones. Last one to sell on PWCC Weekly was the same as this one, so interesting to see them go that close in price. Prior, there was one that sold for 6,800, and then a couple weeks later sold for 4,700 on eBay. Same picture, same everything, so you'd assume same seller. And so this is where, even on Card Ladder, it's not a perfect app. They don't get rid of these repetitive, listings. And that's not to say that these listings, a lot of people see these listings and they think, wow, there's so many people shilling their own auctions. This is probably a scenario where other people own the card and are trying to make sure it doesn't go too low. Typically, that's the type of stuff that happens, I would say, more often than people actually doing it themselves. I say that because I'm someone that sold a lot of cards on eBay, and, especially when I sell Pokemon cards, dude, it is ridiculous the rate at which other people will bid it up because surely they own the same one and are trying to sell it, and it boggles my mind. Some segments are worse than others. You always sort of have to feel that out and understand it yourself. I would say things that have ran recently are always going to be more prone to that than things that have just kind of had a nice steady collector base. So something to think about. And then we ended off with a 1978 crack Maradona PSA 6 rookie, goes for $12,000. Pretty sizable, sticker, I was going to say card, but it's a sticker, goes for, more than double, close to triple of some of the other, top items in this auction, but it is still down massively. And that's, sort of the state of certain items, especially ones that did what this one did. So if we go back to the beginning at the bottom, the first one to sell was in 2020. You'll want to note the card in particular, or the sticker in particular, it's this one, went for $22,000. After that, the following year, in June of 2021, it goes for $113,000. Now that's a crazy sale, if I'm being honest. Unsure what happened there. I'm assuming it got paid and everything worked out. But again, whenever you see these, it makes you wonder, because the next year in 2022, January, a PSA 6 went for, 40? 46? Now, at this point, it's not a PSA Pop 1 of 1. Back here, it was a Pop 1 of 1, none higher. When we look at this sale now, it is a Pop 1 of 6, 5 higher. So there's a lot more of them out there. And that's always going to be the case, especially when you have a sale like this. When a card goes for, I'm assuming before 2020, this was not to 20,000. I'm guessing this is probably closer to, maybe under a few thousand, right? So when it goes for a few thousand to 20 to 113, you're going to get anyone that possibly has them. And knows they have them to get them and send them. So I feel much more trusting in this number. Obviously, even at this number, it's still going to go up. That's always something you have to anticipate and understand and accept when you buy soccer, especially older stuff. The numbered out of 60 Messi autos from modern day, those probably have collectors that are much more aware that they have them, right? And it's numbered, so you know what's out there. This is always sort of more of a guessing game. And so, even at $12,000, it can be seen as a bad sale. when we look at past sales, at least recently, there was a PSA 6 that went for $7,000. Now this is, in my opinion, much worse than this, just on eye appeal. This looks very good, has the sticker, has the PWCC sticker, and this one has like some yellowing going on, some discoloration, pretty obviously off-center, so there's just a lot going on with there. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the auction. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, of course, as I mentioned prior. If you did, make sure to leave a like. If you want to see more auction recaps like this, as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But yeah, with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.